Hello. Welcome to this brand new episode on the She Scales podcast. I am so freaking excited that you're here and so excited to be recording this brand new episode live from Malta, baby. Yes, I did something impulsive, not like me, I know. And last Monday, decided to book a last minute flight at about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and by Tuesday morning was landing in Malta, having never been here before, didn't know much about it, but just wanted and needed to come and explore somewhere new after being in the UK for a while. And grateful to be there, and I've got my second business there, so we've got lots to do there, but my god, I needed some away time. I needed to refuel my sunflower energy with some vitamin D, and I cannot tell you how good of a decision that was for me. Like, I love spontaneity anyway, so to be able to book a flight, land the next day, and just start a whole new adventure, a whole new country, culture, new things to see, new things to do, new places to go, new people to meet. It has just done me the world of good. And so very, very grateful for that decision. But that's not what I wanted to come and talk about today. I have been pouring through content this morning because this afternoon I'm hosting a hot as fuck content session for the ladies inside my mastermind. We're doing a live workshop to help them create really banging content that really speaks to exactly their brand, exactly their industry, their ideal clients, and really hone in this good, juicy stuff that I'm very much known for. Because truly, when you really hone in your messaging and you really capture your brilliance in your content and messaging, there is no competition. But there's room for everybody. So when you really go into your own, like you own your craft, you own your brilliance, everyone else falls away, because it's not only a case of no one else can do what you do like you do it, but when you own it in content, it's so magnetizing for people. And so this is what we're doing later on in this live workshop. And so I was creating some of my own content this morning ahead of doing this workshop later on. I sat in a restaurant that's overlooking the sea, and I'd got the waves just next to me. Such a light, bright space, which is like so important for me. I love light, bright, airy spaces. Like, I need that for my energy. And I was just like, this content was pouring out of me. Loads of ideas coming through, making sure that I've got my own content sorted so that I'm in the best place to be able to help my clients with theirs later. And I created a post that was so good. I was like, I need to turn this into a podcast episode because there's so many valuable lessons inside it. And so I wanted to come and share it here so that you can hear exactly what happened in that story, exactly the decision-making process behind it, and all of the things that were and needed to be in place for that decision to happen. Because by most people, quote unquote, most people's standards, this story is crazy and it's unrealistic and it's absurd. And yet for the entrepreneurs here, for the ones who back themselves before they have the evidence, for the ones who are all in, even if they have no idea that it's going to work, but they do know it's going to work because it's them and they back themselves. And it's that jumping into the dark and jumping off the cliff, even though you haven't got your wings yet, but you trust yourself to grow wings on the way down. This episode is for you guys. And so, getting into the title, I invested 25k in a man who had only known for 22 hours. Here's what you need to know about how high ticket clients buy. I also wanted to add in, just for extra context to this hook, but it was getting a bit lengthy, I invested 25k into a man I'd only known for 22 hours who didn't have a large social media presence, and even an up-to-date social media presence. So I wanted to add that little bit in here for the podcast because that is a very juicy hook, but it was getting a bit word heavy for the carousel posts on Instagram. But I wanted to provide you with how insane that hook is, very bingeable hook, but how insane that story is, again, like how much was stacked, against us, or how ridiculous that would be to invest 25k with someone you'd only known 22 hours and who didn't have a large or up-to-date social media following. So instantly you can hear, especially for me that's big on social media, and I fully believe it's essential. In 2026, anyone that doesn't have a social media presence, I simply do not trust, because this is 2026. Like, if I want to find a new gym, if I want to find a new hotel, if I want to find a new restaurant, any service, any place that I'm going to, I expect them to have a social media presence. And the ones that do are the places that I'm going. Anywhere where I can't find them on social media, I assume that either the business is no longer operating anymore, or it's under poor management, or I'll go as far as, if they don't have social media, that they're trying to hide something. There's something odd about a business that doesn't have a social media presence in 2026. So you can see how the cards were stacked against us. Not really stacked against, but in terms of making an investment, there was like eyebrows raised. Anyway, let's get into, here's what you need to know about that story. I'm going to give you the backstory, and then I'll come into the lessons that you can take away from that about how high ticket clients buy. Because this isn't the only time that I have invested a large amount with a very short amount of time. So I'm going to give you the backstory. It is October 2024. I had gone to a business conference. I'd brought my mum along, and we were sat there listening to the different speakers. There've been various speakers across this 2 days of the conference, and a lot of them were quite pitchy. Like, their entire presentation, like, having done so much sales myself, I can hear it a mile off. Like, I can just spot it coming, and I'm like, really, dude, really, like, this early? You know, you might have, some people had a 30-minute slot, some people had an hour slot, and some of them, like, the entire thing was just sales, and it's so, like, not enjoyable for an audience member. When you've paid to be somewhere, you expect to receive value for your ticket price, and you should receive value for your ticket price because you paid to be there. It's different if it's a free event. When you've paid to be somewhere, you expect the value received to be high. And so if there's a lot of pitching happening, it can just be a little bit like, really, snore. And so for the speakers who their entire presentation was either a very little substance, very little value, and clearly just teeing people up for an ask at the end, whether that was to pitch their program, whether it was to invite them somewhere, like, if the whole thing was just a very obvious tee up for what was coming at the end, it just switches the audience off straight away. Like, I love sales, and it means that I love to be sold to. When someone comes with a really good pitch, I cannot eat it up fast enough. I love to buy, but it means that when someone is either crap at sales or does it in a very, like, icky, just like very car salesman, it's just like, here's why I'm great, here's why you should buy from me, here's why other people have bought from me, here's the pitch. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, like, are people still doing this? Like, it's such a tired sales. Anyway, I know nothing about, inviting someone, creating a circumstance where people want to buy, not because you've pushed it on them and made them feel like they'd be crazy not to, because your ask is so thick and so, like, intoxicating. It's such a, like, yeah. So there was a few of those. Whereas one person was very different. I will add, there were a few other different ones. One of the speakers was Russell Brunson, who was absolutely insane. Like, blew our socks off. I wrote pages of notes. Like, I couldn't write quick enough because Russell's someone who lights up when he speaks. It's like, it's so magnetic to watch, which is why when he did his talk, he led with value, and excitement, which meant that when there was an ask at the end, there was a queue of people that ran to the back of the room to go sign up for it. And it wasn't like a freebie, it was a paid offer. But he created an environment where people felt crazy not to, because he just delivered so much value. And this is the tone of this story, because there was another person on that stage who I'd never seen before, never heard of before. He wasn't carrying the weight of a Russell Brunson name, where you expect excellence, when he's got global reputation. But this person I hadn't heard of before, wasn't familiar with, but Similar to Russell, he lit up when he was speaking about what he did, his area of expertise, his industry. And it's such a different sales environment when someone genuinely, like, they do it for free. They love what they do. They love helping people. They're obsessed with it. Like, they've clearly researched it. They've spent years doing it. They do it for the joy of it, not just the outcomes. And so this person was speaking, and you could see how passionate he was. And the tone, like the actual content of the presentation, was about creating generational change and building your legacy and building additional income streams. Now, keep in mind that I'm sat there with my mum. So obviously, someone speaking about creating generational change and building your legacy and building something that can be left for all the generations after you, and like protecting your finances, and like keeping things within the family and being able to hand stuff off to your children and being able to make a real difference. Obviously, this was massively speaking to us while I'm sat with my mum. And also, obviously, I use a lot of that messaging myself, as in building your legacy, creating generational change, like being the one that makes a difference. So his talk was really landing for us, even though his method was very different to anything that we knew or had come across before. Now, in that, he spoke about methods of getting started, because we came with the preconception of we wouldn't be able to do that, or it's too hard to get started. So we had all of these preconceptions about this thing. I'll give you the shortcut. It's property. You guys know that I've now started a property business, so you know how this story is going to go. But when he was speaking about the impact, creating generational change, creating your legacy, then he was speaking about and these different methods of getting started that most people don't know. Well, now he had us hooked, because all of those preconceptions that we'd had of it would be hard, or it takes a lot to get started, or you need to have years of experience. He answered all of those in his presentation. So we were intrigued. His talk was all value. And then the ask at the end, very similar to Russell. It was value, 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 passion, 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 excitement, excitement, excitement. I know all of the questions and things that you think, and I know different, and I'm going to show you how. And that is mesmerizing to watch. His talk was so much value, so that when there was an ask at the end, and he briefly mentioned, as very brief in comparison to a lot of the other speakers that have been on, where he spent so much of their talk just pitching, whereas his was value, 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 small ask at the end, very different experience, and very different result, might I add. Which is why when he mentioned his free 3-day event, and he'd only been speaking for 30 minutes, I think, mentioned his free 3-day event that was coming up in about a week or so, we didn't hesitate to join. When someone delivers insane levels of value in a short amount of time and then positions an ask at the end, especially if the ask is either a chance to get to know that person more, a chance to come inside their world, get to know them, understand that knowledge at a deeper level, especially if it, as it did go over their head a little bit the first time, people will jump at the chance for that. And we did. So from that 30 minutes on stage, he'd already stood head and shoulders above other speakers. He'd already positioned himself in a lane of one. So we registered for the event. So we get to the 3-day event, which was, I think, a few days later. He blew our socks off across those 3 days. I wrote 20 pages of notes across those 3 days. 20 pages. Like, my pen couldn't move fast enough. I was just like, scribble, 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 scribble. I learned more in that 3 days that were free. Okay, it was £1. Wasn't completely free, but it was £1. But I learned more in that £1 3-day event than I have in some multi-thousand-pound programs that I've joined. In 3 days, and I learned more than I have in months with other people. It was insane. It blew our socks off. From the depth of his knowledge, his intellect, his nuanced understanding from having done so much himself, like the implementation, you could see how many problems he'd found and how he'd overcome it, and how many clients he'd helped, and the really, really rare industry knowledge that he had, the contacts that he had. Like, it was just second to none. We knew very early on, I'd say from day one, to be honest, probably the first hour, we knew that we were in the presence of someone who was completely in his own league, incomparable to anyone else, like fully League of One. And we knew that very early on. And so for the rest of the 3 days, we were just quiet. We were just in awe and we were taking it all in. Do you know, because you're going to hear, obviously, that we chose to invest at the end of this. So I joined this person's mastermind. And I'm going to come back into the story in a second, but to say, in the part of the mastermind, we did a first impressions exercise where we went around the whole room and spoke about the first impressions that we had of each other. And so it was a really good chance to hear 15 or 20 different people's first impressions of me. All of which were very accurate, because what your first impression can be and what someone knows you to be after 6 or 12 months, if that is a real gap for you, then your first impression isn't serving you. If people have this first impression, but it's actually not a true reflection of you, that is 100% holding you back. Whereas all of my first impressions were very accurate. It was all like, wears bright colours, is clearly very confident, speaks up, makes sure her voice and opinion is heard, and all of this sort of stuff. Apart from his, and this is the point that I was getting to, every other person who was a peer in the mastermind, like a fellow joiner, fellow client, their opinions of me were, this woman takes up space. And yet his first impression, because he did it for everyone as well, he couldn't even remember me from that event, which is hilarious, because I don't think in my entire life that I have ever not been remembered. But I'd been such a wallflower, not even a wallflower, I knew that I was in the presence of someone that this was a whole new industry, a whole new field that I got zero experience from. So get zero experience in. And so I sat there, I shut up, and I took notes. I've never been a more dutiful student than I was in that room. And so he actually didn't remember me from that first impression initially. And it was only when I joined the program and I went to Bali straight after and was staying up until 3-4 in the morning to be on those Zoom calls that then he was like, bloody hell, this person is really serious. And he learned a lot more about me then. But the first impression was that I was sort of quiet and meek, maybe. How first impressions change. Anyway, coming back into the story, I knew from his first impression that we were in a League of One, category of one, and that's because how he'd positioned himself, the stories that he'd told, and how he'd shown already in a short space of time the breadth of his knowledge in a short space of time. And we knew that we were in the presence of someone who was like not even a 1%er, like a 0.01%er. So coming back into the story, this was over the 3-day event. We knew that early on day one. By the time we were arriving on day 3, we knew that there would be a pitch coming, and rightly so. We expected it. This man had just spent 3 days pouring his heart into 3 days that blew our brains away. Like, of course, there's going to be an ask at the end, and he's going to invite us, for those that want to continue our education with him, to continue learning and actually to put into practice all the things that he talked about in that 3-day event. Now, whilst naturally we'd been so blown away that, of course, we were interested, we just learned so much. We could see the pathway in front of us. It was exciting. You're picturing what your future you looks like, but it wasn't the right time for us. It wasn't the right time. I was about to fly out of the country to Bali, I think about 3 weeks later at the point of that training. So I'm about to leave the country. I had already invested in something for my coaching business, like the week before. Genuinely, about 1 or 2 weeks before that 3-day event, I just invested in a year-long mastermind. I think that was about 18k. And so I'm sort of invested out. Like, I've just committed to something that I want to give my full attention to. Now isn't the time to be investing in something, again, high ticket, that is also a year-long experience, that is going to pull my time away from this. I want to honour the investment that I just joined. So for multiple reasons, this wasn't the right time. And the most obvious one being, I'm sat there with my mum and we have no industry experience. We are total beginners in this room. Every other person in that room was coming to that room with a level of experience, multiple properties that they owned, just like some of them years in the game. And there was us who just seen him talk at this event and wanted to come along. Total beginners, no business, no background, no experience, honestly, no fucking clue. And so there were many reasons why this didn't make sense or it wasn't the right time, between already being invested, us not even having a business, and and me about to leave the country. Now, we pull up in the car on day 3, arriving at the venue, about to start the day 3 training, and my mum, who is by far the more risk averse one of us. If you know personality profiles, my mum is the SC. She's very logical. She's a thought through person. She's the logical, the planner, the organizer, the management, the overseer, the integrator. She doesn't take risks. She evaluates what all the risks are before taking any sort of movement forwards. She is the analysis. She's the think everything through. What makes the most sense? Let's be cautious. That is her. Evidently, from the way that you guys know me, we are complete opposites. We are yin and yang for that reason. I'm the go first, think about it later, dive in and figure it out, as you're jumping off the cliff. The go forth, be bold, and the say yes and figure out the how later. So the complete opposite. So we pull up in the car in the morning, and obviously I've already invested the week before. I'm about to leave the country. We don't have a business together. So my mom turns to me as we're pulling up and says, "We are not investing today. Got it?" Very firm. To which I said, "Got it. Fine by me. I've already made my investment. I'm about to leave the country." I delayed my first investment to be when I knew I'd be getting back from Bali in 6 months' time. So things were good. And so I was like, cool, got it. Because I knew that if my mum was a hard no, we were both okay. I know that I'm easily sold to, and I love to be sold to. But if she's we're not doing this, I'm like, cool, I can now sit back and chill. Because I'm not going to be worrying about the pull when the irresistible offer is positioned, because she's a hard no. So I was like, sweet, we're good. Got it, I replied. Now, Mama Buckland, being the logical buyer, she doesn't rush into anything. She's very considered. She's not easy to swing. So when she said no that morning, that was an absolute relief to me. I knew it meant that we weren't buying. So I was like, cool. Fast forward to lunchtime. And by this point, the full irresistible offer has been positioned. And it was an excellent pitch. And Mum leans into me and says, "I feel like the universe brought us here for a reason. We should just go for it." I was like, sorry? What do you mean? Now, if I was to say, "I feel like the universe brought us here," that's a very me thing to say. To hear those words come out of her mouth is like a mathematician saying, "I went on gut instinct." Like, the two things they don't go in the same sentence. So then Mom is saying, "I feel like the universe brought us here on purpose." I was like, you've been hanging around with me for far too long. For context, what she meant by that was not just that we heard him speak and that we'd found ourselves at this event and we just happened to be off on those days and could sign up on those dates. There was also multiple things that had worked in our favour to get us there. One of them is that we had been speaking about working together in business somehow, because we knew that we were the yin and yang. We knew that we have complementary skills. Mum is the organizer, the planner, the logic. I am the sales, the marketing, the go for it. And so we balance each other out. We also hear each other's perspectives really well. We can either call each other out. We can hear Yeah, we balance each other out really well. We work really strong together. So we'd already spoken about what would it look like to work together. Is that something that, would she start her own business and I'd come and do sales and marketing for her? Would she come into my business and do more of the back end and organizational and sound like management for me, so that I can spend more time in my zone of genius? So we had spoken about doing some sort of business together, but we didn't really know what that was going to look like. Also, Mum had reduced her hours at work, so that she had only just, literally like the week before maybe, gone down to 4 days a week, partly because of her coming out to Bali to see me and realizing how much more life there is to be lived outside of work. She'd really readjusted her work-life balance that holiday. Like her coming to spend 2 weeks with me, touring around, riding on the back of my motorbike, going through the rice fields, going to beaches. We went to see like not a shaman, like a psychic healer, and he told her loads about herself. I've definitely covered that in a different episode because that story blew my mind. And we'd really reconnected as mum and daughter as well. Like that had been a life-changing trip. She'd learned to scuba dive because I was like, Mum, have you ever done that? And she was like, no. And it's something I've always wanted to do, but I never thought that I'd get the chance. And I'm like, well, we're here now. And we booked a dive, and she did all like the safety stuff. And then we got to do 2 dives together and be on the bottom of the ocean floor as a giant manta swam over our heads. And I remember reaching out and holding her hand, because obviously you can't really talk, and just being like, wow, as this huge, like 3-meter manta, like just glided over our heads. It was such a moment. And so that trip, when she came back from that, she was like, change is going to happen. I've been working way too hard for way too long, and I'm going to cut down my hours. I'm going to spend more time doing the things that I want to do for me. And I was like, yes, Mum, I love this for you. And so coming back into this story, Mum had just cut down her hours. She'd now taken Fridays off. That was to figure out what she wanted to do for her, whether that was start a new business, whether it was to just spend some time, like take Fridays off and just enjoy life more. And so we'd spoken about some sort of business. She'd taken this time off, and that had just come into play. She'd just managed to get it approved, albeit the company didn't like it. And then we find ourselves at this business event. And so from one speaker going into the 3-day, and now there's an ask, and it's going to be a big ask on us because we have no business together. For her to then to say, I feel like so many things have just fallen into place, one by one, that the universe brought us here. I was like, oh my God. I'm also like, well, shit, I guess we're signing up then, aren't we? Because if I'm a yes anyway, but I thought you were the hard no. And here you are saying, she was saying, this is now or never. That was her words. It's now or never. I feel like the universe brought us here for a reason. We either go all in or we don't. And I'm like, well, shit, can't be in there. And so we signed up to a 25k year-long mastermind. How insane. Having only known the guy for the time of those 3 days, so what's that, like 8 hours across the 3 days. It might not even be that, because there was various breaks and lunch breaks, plus the 30 minutes that he was on stage. So coming into what you need to know and what you need to take away from that story about how high ticket buyers buy. So I might even add more to this. I've got a few points lined up there, and I might even freestyle some more. Number 1, high ticket buyers don't need more time. They need more certainty. You can collapse timelines and be enrolling people in who only just discovered you a few days before into your 10k, 20k, 30k, and even 50k offers. There were some people in that room that went for his 50k offer for private coaching. When you create a high amount of trust in a short amount of time, you can collapse timelines and be enrolling people into your highest level multi-5 or even 6-figure offers when you create an insanely high amount of trust in a short amount of time. It doesn't need to take a long time. People don't need to follow you for 6 months, 12 months. They don't need to follow you for years to build trust incrementally if you build a high amount of trust in a short amount of time. So be thinking about, how can you do this for you? How can you invite people into your world to build an insanely high amount of trust, position yourself in a lane of one in a short amount of time? This is a thing. Quick decision makers, especially the more impulsive ones that are like a hell yes, hell no, which Mum became in that environment. She's not usually, but she became a let's go all in, it's now or never kind of buyer because of the insanely high amount of trust that had been built. If you give people the information that they need, you give them the opportunity to move forwards, you show how much is possible for them, and there's only a short amount of like window opportunity that's going to be available for. So, people don't need more time, they need more certainty. How can you build more certainty, more trust, more authority, and more reassurance that your process works? There's so many people who are marketing stuff that doesn't work or doesn't work often. So how can you create more trust that your method, your process, your offers work, they get people real results, and they get people incredible results? When you can build a high amount of trust in you and your process in a short amount of time, then people can go into your high ticket offers when they were strangers the day before. Number 2, when you lead with level 10 service, then high ticket sales are an inevitable outcome. There were plenty of speakers on that stage who turned us off immediately because they led with sales. It was sell, 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 sell. He didn't. He led with service. And then there was an ask at the end. When you lead with value, when you lead with service, when you lead with genuinely wanting to help and make a difference, then when there's an ask at the end, that's easy for people to say yes to. It's an invitation to continue the work that you're already doing. And people can see that you're going to carry on doing that work, whether they come or not. They're not feeling like you're asking them to come. You're going anyway and inviting them to come with you. It's a very different sales approach. And it's a far nicer customer experience. When you lead with service, when you lead with value, when you lead with, I'm going to change people's lives, would you like it to be yours? When you deliver level 10 excellence, when you blow people's minds, they will want to come and join your world as a natural outcome. This is the law of reciprocity. When you're giving so much that there's an ask at the end, but it's still only a fraction of what you're already giving, then the ask is easy. And it's easy for people to say yes to. If you're delivering value that is 10 times what the ask is, it's easy for people to say yes. And when you're giving so much value, the law of reciprocity, people are going to want to pay you back in some form because what they've already received from you is excellent. And it's way above what other people are doing. When you've led and given such value either for free or from an insanely low price point, we spent 3 days with him for £1. So when there was a high ask at the end, it was still a no-brainer because of how much insane levels of knowledge have been delivered in that 3 days. Far more than the 25k price point. Number 3, someone can go from a no to a hell yes, count me in, real fast when they see a great opportunity. We'd pulled up in that car on the morning of day 3 and Mum had said to me, we are not investing today. Got it? Such certainty. She knew there was going to be an ask. You know, we're not like unaware. We're going into it fully aware. And it's a great offer. And we're interested, but it just wasn't the right time. There was plenty of reasons why we shouldn't, or it didn't make sense, or, you know, timing, money, because I just invested in something else. Didn't make sense. We didn't have a business. Everybody in there already came from a property background, and there was us. Mom in full-time employment and me with a different business. It made no sense. So we were a strong no on that morning, and yet a few hours later were a hell yes, count us in, because of it being a great opportunity. So when you've got an irresistible offer presented with a one-time only opportunity with someone that your clients have, this is you in this case, but when there's an irresistible offer presented in a one-time only opportunity with someone that they have a high amount of trust and respect for, that's a great opportunity. So how can you demonstrate and build more trust with your audience, with you? Because when you do that, and then you present a great opportunity, then high ticket sales will come easily for you, because it'll be a no-brainer for your audience, and someone can go from a no to a hell yes, count me in, when they see that great opportunity. It's something that they want, and they're ready to go, and they know there's a limited time only opportunity for them to get that thing. Number 4, someone can be a complete beginner and have every reason why it's not the right time, and still invest in your £25,000 offer when they see A, what's possible for them, and B, they back themselves and believe in their own ability to make that result happen, even if the odds are against them. This is showing you that people don't always need to come through low ticket offers first, or buy your 2K course, or a stepping stone up to your high ticket offer. People can go from complete beginner, and this is where I've talked about this before, when it comes to premium clients aren't the ones who have got the biggest, the most experience in the industry, or have been doing it the longest. It's nothing to do with where they're at. It's about their emotional intelligence. We were total beginners. From a experience in that room, we were by far the smallest. And yet when we invested, knowing that we'd be the smallest in the room, which PS, you want to be, so much to learn when you're the smallest in the room, but how you move when you're in there is very different, because there were people with way more experience than we had that we overtook when we were in that room because of how we moved. It does not matter how many years you've been doing it. It matters how you back yourself, how you see yourself, how willing you are, how thirsty you are to win and make it work for you. We were thirsty as fuck. I have no shame in saying we were thirsty as fuck, because when you invest 25k into something that you have got no fucking idea what you're doing, you show the fuck up. You show up to every single thing. You part the diary to make sure that you're at every single thing, every Q&A, every call, every event. You are asking questions, if you even know the questions to ask, and if you don't, you shut up and you watch the conversation that's happening. You show up very differently when you invest high, because there's that, we have to make this work. Now, I'm someone that's not new to investing, and so I've built up, experience, tolerance, understanding, whereas my mom, she's never invested before. This was her first time. And so to go from never having invested before to a 25k investment in an industry that she'd got no prior experience in is insane by most people's standards. And yet she did it. And yet she was the hell yes, count us in person, having been a no that morning. And we went on to be really successful in that program. We went on to implement things really fast, be starting to get results from our marketing, learning, adapting. We had other people saying, asking us what we'd been doing, because we were taking so much more action. We were showing up every time and ultimately we went on to get our own house, having joined that mastermind, and learn the process to be able to replicate that time and time and time again. So we've learned something now and got enough experience that we can carry on that journey of success indefinitely. And all of that, even though we came into it being complete beginners. What's that saying? I literally said this in my voice note in the She Scales community yesterday when I was talking about content workshop and why I do live workshops with my clients. I was saying, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for life. This is what you get inside high-level programs and experiences. Life-changing experience. Whether it's the method, whether it's the framework, whether it's the network in that room, whether it's the understanding of things that you had no freaking idea about, and 99% of people also have no freaking idea about, because 99% of people aren't willing to invest at that level. And so you're learning things that only the 1%, if that, know. So coming back into this point, someone can go from a complete beginner and have every reason why it's not the right time and still invest in your 25k offer when they see A, what's possible for them, as in what outcomes could happen, what are the end results, what could that look like, and how soon could it happen. You can't promise like definality. Definality, is that even a word? Because obviously it's on them. So, but you can show what's possible and how soon it can be possible and how soon it has been possible for others. If the person is willing to do the work, they have to be willing, able, excited, and thirsty. Thirsty to want to win, thirsty to want to make it work. So when they see A, what's possible, and B, they back themselves and believe in their own ability to make that result happen. Because it's one thing to look at what is possible for others. It's another thing entirely to have the self-trust that you know you've got either enough fire in your belly, enough resourcefulness to either seek help and support as and when you need it, or to be able to find the answers that you need a lot as you're going to go along this journey, but you back yourself to make it happen. Either through knowledge, experience, past experiences, or just through sheer force. If you're like, I have no freaking clue how this is going to work, but it fucking is, because I'm going to make it. So we had a little bit of that. We had no idea how it was going to work, and we also knew that what we were about to say yes to was going to be really freaking hard, many times overwhelming, that like we'd be out of our depth for probably the entire program, the entire year, and that we would be a very, very small fish in very, very big pond, a very big pond. And we were. That first, I was going to say a month then, that's a lie. I'd say the first 6 months, we were such a small fish. And there were conversations happening that just seemed so like out of our world, out of our realm of comprehension. We didn't understand even the language that was being used because we didn't know those terminology. And so, but we learnt, we were keen, we showed up. And this is what I wanted to share with you guys is people can go from complete beginners and still come out and win as long as they want to, as long as there's that desire. So there can be every reason why it doesn't make sense, or it's not the right time, or people don't have the money. Like we had every objection under the sun. Every objection. We also knew that we wouldn't be able to ask anyone else's opinion because there's no freaking way why anyone else would get it. So we didn't tell anyone. In fact, we didn't tell anyone until we like months into the program. Because we didn't want outside opinions, because outside opinions would have said, you're crazy, why are you doing that? But why? You've never spoken about this. And we didn't need anyone's reassurance as to understand why. Like we knew why that was enough. We weren't going to start explaining to people why we'd just invested 25k in a man that we'd known for 22 hours. And so wanted to share that story because when you create that high amount of trust, when you deliver brilliance, out of choice and passion, without there being any obvious ask, it means that when the ask comes, it's so no-brainer for people because they want to come and get more of what you're already sharing. As in, insane results will be inevitable for you when you lead with value, when you lead with service, when you lead with excellence, and when you position yourself as a complete category of one that nobody else can or does do what you do in the way that you do it, you become incomparable. And this is such an excellent buying atmosphere, because when I've been a client in those environments, there's nobody else that I'm thinking about like, oh, well, do I want to join this person's mastermind, or what about the other one that is similar? There is no similar. When you create a really incredible client experience and you create an irresistible offer, you show people what's possible for them, and they believe in themselves enough, they back themselves to get that result with your support, then insane results will be inevitable for you. I don't know how many other people, I'm trying to think how many people joined up from that event. I would guess at around 10. And I've already told you what we invested. So I don't know which program everybody else joined or what level they came in at, but you can reasonably assume the multi-six figures that came from that 3-day event. Extraordinary and inevitable because of the way that he led. When you lead at this level, then insane results that don't make sense to most other people are what's not only possible for you, but normal for you. Oosh! I have loved this episode. I freaking love. For me, that's been in sales and seen so many pitches, but also as I'm on my journey through growth and through doing the scary thing and through putting myself in either situations, masterminds, events, or even countries that don't make logical sense, but are really freaking exciting and I live for the plot, but B, help me to be such a better, more well-rounded and nuanced mentor for my own clients, and be able to share the excellence that I see, not only that I give and what I already know from my own experience in sales, but when I see excellence replicated in the market. And also I can see some terrible examples, but when I see excellence in the market, I can then share what was great about it with you guys and with my clients, so that we all get to learn how to do better, how to provide excellence, so that your results become inevitable because of how you're moving and how you're delivering, how you're positioning yourself in a lane of one, how nobody else is like you, does what you do to the level that you do it, and you become incomparable. Oh, I've loved this episode. Now, and you're listening to this, I am launching a brand new mastermind. And I've hinted at the word that it's called, but at the time of me recording this, I haven't released what the word is. But if you're ready to deliver excellence at that level and become someone whose results are inevitable because of how they're moving, the brilliance that they bring to the table, the extraordinary level that they go to, and how open they are for insane results and unreasonable results because of how they're moving and how they're living and how they embody their own greatness, then this mastermind is for you. If you're someone that wants to go from 6-figure years into 6-figure months, or is scaling to multi-six figures and wants to create, or even 7 figures, because this isn't about the money side of things. This is you being able to create something that makes no sense to anybody outside of you. That you create insane levels of results. Maybe it's you selling out your event. Maybe it's you popping off on YouTube. Maybe it's you choosing to go viral and you do. Maybe it's being invited to speak on massive stages. Maybe it's you doing what you used to do in a year, in a month, or even a week. And it's you just collapsing time and making insane results your baseline. I'm so freaking excited for this space. And so I'm going to be starting the launch of it very, very soon. And so I'm going to drop the waitlist in the show notes for this. If that sounds like the kind of space that you want to be in and you want to be part of this mastermind, sign up onto the waitlist and I will be in touch with you soon. I freaking loved this episode and I cannot wait to either work with you soon if you're already in my spaces. If you would like to work together, you want to know what masterminds we've already got happening, drop me a message on Insta and I cannot wait to speak to you soon. All right, my loves, speak soon. Toodaloo.